Hi, and welcome back to the Race Coordinator Race Format Tutorials. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about how to create a race format so that you can guarantee a certain number of track marshals should you have a low driver turnout for a particular night. Let's say you have a track that you're running on that really requires, in this example, we're going to say two track marshals. Which means you need to have two driver sit-outs. Well, what if only four drivers show up, and this imaginary track is a four-lane track that requires two marshals? So what it means is that normally you would need at least 6 drivers to race so that you'd have 4 on the track and 2 marshaling. But if you only have 4 drivers show up, what happens then? You can't just use a standard round-robin format, because if you do that, what will happen is it'll put 4 drivers on the track and you'll have no marshals. So what I'm going to do is show you how, using Race Coordinator's custom round-robin format, to configure it in a way that will guarantee you at least 2 track marshals and the ability, therefore, to marshal your track and run as optimally as possible in terms of your heat rotations. So, as normal, we're going to start with the regular round-robin tutorial that we had set up before, and now I'm going to touch on the important properties that augment this. So I've already mentioned that we don't want a standard round-robin race here, because what that'll do is that'll put the first 4 drivers on the track driving, and as you can see in the heat rotations here, if you only have 4 drivers, that won't allow you any marshals. One other point that I meant to show you quickly, over here on the race day setup screen, I've added only 4 drivers, so you can see what this heat rotations, what they will look like if you only had 4 drivers. And then what we can do, if I have time, is I'll go back and add 5 and add 6, and I'll show you what the heat rotations look like. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to use a custom round-robin sequence, and what this is a way of setting up a round-robin rotation, but allowing you to set up how the round-robin occurs. It's an interesting concept. It's really cool. It actually works basically, as far as I can tell, exactly the way the TrackMate software does their custom sequences. So if you're familiar with that, you should be very familiar with this. The way you can imagine this is that imagine the driver stations are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, however many lanes you have. And then imagine in your head, for our purposes, that each of the marshalling the places that you need a track marshal, are also numbered, although they're number 0. What we're going to do is, basically, they require a sit-out. So in this case, we need 2 track marshals, so we need 2 zeros on the track or in the sequence at all times. So with that said, now the first thing I want to show you before I go ahead and set up the sequence is I want to show you that the default value is 1, 2, 3, 4, and what this is it's another way of saying what I previously just said, is that we are taking a standard round-robin and mapping wherever the driver would be in a standard round-robin to whatever the numbers here are in your sequence. So interestingly enough, it defaults to 1, 2, 3, 4, so this is the first, so think of this first spot here, this number 1, as driver station 1. I'm mapping driver station 1, in this case, to wherever driver station 1. I'm mapping driver station 2 to 2, 3 to 3, and 4 to 4. Guess what? This is a standard round-robin sequence. As you can see, it is an absolute standard round-robin. So with that said, one thing you can do with this, and this is not our current task at hand, but for example, I can do a reverse standard round-robin by going 4, 3, 2, 1. Now what you'll see is that driver 4 is in the red lane instead of driver 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're going to rotate the opposite direction. So again, now in this case, I've taken a standard round-robin and mapped lane 1 to 4, lane 2 to 3, lane 3 to 2, didn't mean to do that, and then lane 3 to 2 and 4 to 1. So you can see, so hopefully that gives you an understanding of how this mapping works. And now what I'm going to show you is the sequence that we want. So we need to guarantee 2 track marshals. Well, there's a lot of ways you can actually do it, but the way we're going to do it is we're going to just specify sit-outs. And the way to do that in the custom round-robin format is, like I said, to assign drivers, or to assign marshalling positions as spot 0. And so all we're going to do is we're going to make every other spot a 0. So we're going to do 4, we're going to do 3, 0, comma, 4, comma, 0. Now the way this is going to work, before I show you that every heat is going to have 2 empty slots, is I'm going to map driver station 1 to 1. Whoever would be on driver 2 is going to be mapped to a sit out. Whoever would be on 3 is going to be mapped to lane 2. Whoever is going to be mapped to lane 4 is going to be a sit out. Whoever's going to be on this imaginary lane, like position 5. So in a 4-lane track, that would be the rotation back to 1. So you can imagine all the drivers are just marching down. So now we actually have a 5th position. And so as everybody's shuffling down a spot in a standard round robin, when you land on the 5th spot, you go to lane 3, driver station 3. When you're on the 6th spot, you sit out. When you're on the 7th spot, you go to driver station 4. And when you're on the 8th spot, you sit out again. And what this will do is, this will do 2 things. In a 4-lane, in a 4-driver setup like we have here, it's going to guarantee that every heat, has 2 sit-outs. As you can see, 2 empty lanes every single time. 2 empty lanes and 2 empty lanes. Now you've got 8 heats instead of 4, but that's what we want. We want to guarantee the 2 sit-outs. So real quick, I'm going to save this. I'm not going to. I'm going to call this custom RR. I'm going to add this. The only reason I'm going to create this now, so you've seen that. Now what I want to show you though is what happens now if I add 2 more drivers. Actually, I got a little bit of time, let's add 1 more driver first. So now I've got 5 drivers. Let's go back to the Manage Race screen. I'm going to select my race here. I'm going to go to the heat formats, and you'll see it's still selected. Now what you'll notice is now in Heat 1, you're still going to have 8 heats. And the cool thing with this race format is that what it has done is it has said, oh, here's where the driver 5 is, right here on this number 3. Whoever's in spot 5 gets mapped to lane 3. Well, that's what happens right here. Now on the second heat, everybody gets shuffled down 1, where this sit-out location rotates back around to lane 1, and then everybody shuffles down. So you'll notice that 1, 3, and 5 won't be on the track in this next heat. Only 2 and 4 are. So you can see some limitations here in that all the even number drivers race together, all the odd number drivers race together. And I'm going to show you one more thing, and I'm going to add a 6th driver real quick. And we're going to come back in and we're going to do manage. We're going to do manage race. We're going to do custom round robin, and I'm going to show you this once more. And once again, now you've got curiosity. Why do you... Interesting. You still only have 3 heats. I was expecting 4, but I guess that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, sorry. And this is absolutely correct. So up until 8 drivers, you'll still have only 8 heats. And as I add the 7th driver, some of the heats will have 4, some of the heats will have 3 drivers in them. And once I add that 8th, then every heat will have all 4 drivers. If I have a 9th driver added, you'll get an extra heat, and you'll have 4 drivers in every heat again. Now this isn't the only way to do this. Like I said, you can do it any way. I mean, anything you can conceive in here. Basically, as you add zeros, that adds sit-outs. The key is that you have to make sure that since you want 2 sit-outs, that if you only have 4 drivers, if you look at any 4 of these numbers as a group, that there are at least 2 zeros in that group. So like you could add a 0 in here and push everything down, and then you have 3 sit-outs in one place. You could instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4 the way I did it with the zeros in between, you could do 1, 0, 3, 0, 2, 0, 4, 0 to sort of break up the, how the drivers are laid out or whatever. Really it's whatever you want. It is still a standard round robin in that the drivers are incrementally moving down these lane assignments. So so it is somewhat limited in terms of what you can do, but it's totally limitless in terms of what you can configure. You can add out, on a 4-lane track or however many lanes, you can add 20 more numbers to this to create whatever rotation sequence you're looking for, and you'll get it. So that's it. That's how you set up your custom round robin format, and that's specifically how you guarantee track marshals when you have a lower driver turnout. I hope you found this useful, and good luck.